Well, good morning. Healthcare is one of the most critically important services provided here in the Upper Peninsula. It's also the region's largest employer. There's a major change ahead for healthcare, and we'll talk about that right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, that major change is an impressive new hospital that will be opening in a few months to serve Marquette and the Upper Peninsula. We'll talk about that in a few minutes as we welcome Brian Synott to the Ryan Report. Brian came to town in 2016 as the CEO of UP Health System Marquette, the Upper Peninsula's largest healthcare provider and employer. Brian, welcome back to the Ryan Report.
Thank you, Don. It's great to be back.
Nice to have you with us. You know, you've since we talked last, you've taken on some additional responsibilities now here in the Upper Peninsula with Bell Portage and I'm with UP Health System Portage and Bell. Tell us about that.
Yes, very excited to be working closer with those communities and those leaders and those teams. That happened earlier this year, or actually early last year in 2018. It's a way for us as a system to start to leverage each other's knowledge, our staff, to really create a system of care across the UP. And so with us here in Marquette, being the largest of the three hospitals, there's a natural synergy there to better serve the communities outside of just Marquette. And so with those two in particular, because they're part of the UP Health System family, there was an opportunity for us to do a better job with that, really integrating the hospitals to better serve the communities across the UP. So I'm very excited to be in this role.
Okay. Well, we talked about your background a little before, so we'll just spend a couple of minutes on that.
Sure.
You actually grew up in Minnesota, so this climate is kind of at home to you.
I did, very much at home. It actually gets much colder in Minnesota,
right.
So I'm very comfortable here. This is a cold stretch for us here, but this is rather balmy compared to where I grew up, and so the UP does feel very much like home. We get more snow here, but I would take more snow any day over the chilly aspects of where I grew up in Minnesota.
You've been here now for almost 3 years. Have you had a chance to get out and explore the area?
I have. You know, it's beautiful. I had heard so much about it when I was in Minnesota growing up, and I just wasn't able to get over here. My mom grew up in Bemidji, family in Duluth, but we just never got into the UP before, so I knew of it. And so when I had the opportunity to come here, now living here for a little over 2.5 years, it's so beautiful. I mean, the reputation certainly precedes itself. That's what I always heard. Great place to snowmobile, be outside, the outdoors. I mean, it is stunning. And so we have had a chance to get out and play. We've got a couple of dogs that love the snow, thankfully, and so we do like to get out, do some hiking, and take those little guys around. They really enjoy it.
When we talked before, the hospital had gone kind of through a bumpy period in that transition from nonprofit to for-profit, LifePoint ownership. Has that smoothed out now?
Yeah, you know, it has. I think the community, thankfully, has been so welcoming to not only me, but my family. And I think there was a readiness there for some of the community leaders to be better educated and informed about what we're going through in healthcare. There's a number of changes that are ongoing right now that are very important for communities across the U.S. to be better aware of, and took us away from some of the historical challenges or even perceptions of what a hospital should be and what to expect from your hospital, regardless of whether it's a nonprofit, if it's a for-profit or Catholic-based, whatever it might be. Healthcare is vitally important to any community, and so we're very blessed here in Marquette and across the UP to have the type of healthcare facilities that we do here. And so I think there were some things that over time we were able to better inform some leaders here in the community and some folks in the community about what we're intending to do, which is just to provide outstanding healthcare, truly aiming for world-class healthcare here in the Upper Peninsula. And we need your support to do that. And I think that context of what's going on nationally has been vitally important, just to have that discussion with some people in the community, within the organization, outside the organization. And really across the UP, it's been a consistent message from me around that. I think it's very important for us all to know just how precious great health care is in rural communities right now. And we play such an important role for our economy, for recruiting new businesses and growth. Oftentimes one of the first questions potential new business will ask is, well, how's your health care?
Right.
What kind of health care do you have? And so we feel a great responsibility to continue to deliver on that promise of making our communities healthier. We do it in many ways, and first and foremost is when you're ill or a loved one's ill, to be there for you 24/7, 365, and that's not easy anymore in healthcare. You're seeing a lot of hospitals not be able to survive, particularly in rural communities. Not exclusively, but definitely in rural communities, it's far more challenging now. And so as we've had to go through some changes, as we've had to do things differently, people don't always love change.
No.
That doesn't always come second nature to people to change and evolve in an industry where there wasn't historically a lot of change. Right now, the industry is going through a lot of change very, very quickly. And so we are now ready and positioned to adapt, grow, evolve with those changes to make sure that we're a strong partner for this community, not only from an economic standpoint, but also for the people that need us when they aren't well.
And speaking of the economic side, I know in a recent talk to the Economic Club, you mentioned you have a payroll of about $215 million, $9 million in taxes, $5 million charity and community projects. Those are big numbers.
Correct, they are, and that's that responsibility we have for what we do for the community is something we all take very seriously. And so those are important economic anchors. And so when we think about the future of the Upper Peninsula and the future of Marquette and our community, and I think there is an energy there that's very exciting to be a part of about what we could be, and thinking about growth and capitalizing on this beautiful environment that we have up here and some of the unique features that we have up here. How can we be partners in that growth? And so I think we're all now aligned. I think there's a great energy in the community and across the UP now about how we can differentiate ourselves and how we can grow, how we can recruit new businesses. And certainly the hospital and health system plays a big role in that. And we recognize that. And so, the stronger we are, I think the stronger other growth opportunities for us will be. And so that's something that I'm proud now, what we've been able to accomplish the last 2.5 years. You mentioned the bumps that we had. Certainly, we're not unique in that regard. I think hospitals everywhere have their challenges, things that come up, but we're very focused on our future and providing great high quality care for the communities we do serve.
Got a lot more questions for you. We'll get to those in just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. Guest this morning is Brian Synott, the market president for UP Health Systems. Brian, last year your company merged with another company, RCCH Healthcare, similar company to LifePoint. Mm-hmm. And you're now moving forward as one company. What has that meant for operations here?
We are. Thankfully, not a lot. Okay. Here in the field, as they call it, really not much changes. We're running the hospitals. We're working with our teams to provide great care, very focused on quality, same growth initiatives. Those things really haven't changed. I think what's interesting to me is going forward what LifePoint is doing now and now merging with another rural hospital company is they're trying to solve that riddle right now that many haven't been able to previously, which is how do you provide world-class healthcare in a sustainable fashion in rural communities across America? That's something that most people aren't investing in right now. They aren't seeing a great future there. And so what's interesting to me is the LifePoint team is really doubling down on defining how do we provide world-class healthcare in rural communities in those places that are most at risk to lose access to great healthcare. Right. And so it'll be exciting to see the team there at LifePoint and see how they roll this out and deploy it. For us here in the UP, I really haven't felt much of a change.
I believe the combined company has something like 85 communities where they operate.
Correct.
And they are all rural communities, aren't they?
Correct.
As I recall, at one point, this was one of the larger hospitals in the system. Is that still true?
Yes, we're still one of a handful that are our size. Yes,
Okay.
so we're still one of the larger facilities in the portfolio.
And I know the CEO of the new company came from LifePoint, so that's always a good thing that the status quo will be maintained.
Yes, that's a great thing. I think it would be different. I might have different feelings about it if there was, massive change at the top. But for us, we are very familiar with David Dill, the new LifePoint CEO. He's very familiar with the Upper Peninsula, very familiar with Marquette, and so that bodes well for us.
The exciting thing for all people, and I know some details are still being put together, but the new hospital. Have you set a date yet for the move?
We are close to setting a date. There are some regulatory requirements and licensure components that we need to make sure that we pass in a couple of months, and there aren't any changes or things that we need to tweak or refine. Nothing concerning, but it might make the date slide a couple of weeks potentially, and so we know it's this spring. We're aiming for a time in April, but if it slides a week or 2 or 3, that's nothing to be concerned about. It's just we'll know for sure once those regulatory components are checked off, which are upcoming at the end of February.
You know, the present campus developed over many decades.
Yeah.
And, one of the fun things is how do you find your way around?
Yeah.
The new hospital, in a broad sense, what can people expect?
Yeah. Well, this is very exciting. Being here 2.5 years now, I've heard a lot and learned a lot about the history of healthcare here. Over 120 years ago is really the genesis of, I think it was called the Marquette City Hospital, the first one. And so it's fascinating to be here during this time. It's such a privilege to be here during this time where we're going to get to turn another page together and turn a chapter. And for the city of Marquette, I think it's a very exciting time. And so this hospital is designed very patient and visitor-centric. Wayfinding in our current hospital is a challenge, and it's big. I mean, like many hospitals, you just kind of build on and around things, and all of a sudden you have this giant campus that isn't very efficient for people. Many people who access the hospital might not be as mobile as they'd like for various reasons, and so very excited. The new campus, very efficient. Very easy to get in and access services, particularly on the outpatient side if you need imaging or a lab or even outpatient surgery. I mean, it's a very tight, efficient layout that's very much designed for patients and visitors to be able to find their way much easier.
Yeah. And I think it's hard for the average person, myself included, to fathom that you think you can move all this in one day.
Oh, yeah.
And you can. Huh?
Oh, yes, very much. Thankfully, I've done this once before, and so it can and will be done, most likely in less, it'll be done in one day. The last time I did this, a similar sized organization, we're anticipating similar number of patients will be relocated to the new facility as what I did before, and it was a matter of hours. And so there is a ton of planning that has gone on the last couple of years and is really ramping up now. We have a lot of people working really hard to make sure that transition is efficient and we're able to get over there soon, in a tighter timeline, a matter of 3 to 6 hours, but that everyone's safe.
Do you try to keep census at a lower level when this is going to happen?
Yeah, we will. There are certain things that will ratchet down a little bit in the week preceding the move, just to limit the number of people who would have to go from one facility to another. And then once we're in and stabilize, I anticipate regular operations ensuing almost immediately. Okay. But we can and will do some things in the operating room prior to our move that'll just help keep our census at a manageable level, so we can just minimize the number of patients that are going to be enduring that move, the long ride from one place to another.
I've got a couple more questions about that and some other questions as well. We'll get to those in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on the Ryan Report 2 minutes from now. Again, we're talking with Brian Synott from UP Health System. Before we leave the new hospital, just, I was thinking about this move. And it's not just moving all those patients, but you have to move labs and imaging and food and so many things, and they have to be ready to roll.
That's right.
Will those things be kind of ready ahead of time, or?
Oh, they're ready. They will be ready. Yeah, the whole thing. It's really a very interesting process to watch evolve. When I got here 2.5 years ago, there was already planning ongoing for this day. And so as time wore on, especially the last 12 months, I would say it's really ratcheted up, or it is really our primary focus right now to make sure everyone's ready. First, that all our patients are going to be safe, and we plan for almost any series of event, and we're going to be ready to adapt to that. But then also all the different departments in the hospital are also moving. And so we're essentially running 2 hospitals now, one our active one, and one virtually, where all of our leaders now are training their teams on what the new environment's going to be like, what's the layout, what does the workflow look like. So it's pretty awesome to see one hospital go from being turned on and you transfer all the patients, turn it off, and having that other hospital go live immediately thereafter. I mean, it's an exciting time.
Shifting gears, I know you've talked quality, and of course talk is one thing, but you've actually received some awards and some recognition, haven't you?
We have. I'm so proud of our teams. I'm so proud to represent in some fashion, but to work with the people there in our hospital and in our system. They're so dedicated and so good, and we're so fortunate to have the talent that we do here in the community. And so we've got one that is, I think, probably easiest for everyone to understand, the Leapfrog Award. We've got 2 consecutive A grades, and that's something that's a real testament to our hard work around delivering safe care. We've got some others in the heart program. So proud of our heart program. We've got 2 American College of Cardiology awards, and we're seeking another one by the end of second quarter that we'll be announcing. And these are world-class designations. They don't happen by accident. You have to be very focused. And one of the things we've been working on is adopting principles from highly reliable organizations. And so those are organizations that work in life and death situations every day. When you think about the airlines, or if you think of nuclear submarines, there are things that they had done and adopted and become part of their culture a long, long time ago. And in 1999, the Institute of Medicine published a seminal report called To Err is Human, and it really took a good look at the healthcare industry in the United States and realized there were opportunities for improvement there. Too many patients were being harmed, when if we started to focus in ways that these other organizations did, we could see a dramatic improvement. So we have been very intentional, very focused on embedding more of those principles into our organization to create a much safer environment. So in the last 2.5 years, we've improved our patient outcomes by 51%. In addition to a number of these other more public-facing accolades, I mean, we are creating a safer environment by being very focused on process over people. People make mistakes, and that was the point of this book, is that to err is human. And so if you don't have systems and processes in place to support people in their work environment, when we were literally working in life and death situations, people will make a mistake. And so you have to rely more on process and systems. And so we're still very intentionally focused on refining those systems to ensure patients have great outcomes.
I know one thing the community is very pleased with, and that is there is now a plan for what's going to happen to the old campus after you leave.
I'm very glad to have announced that plan. That was the question, I think, in the last 1.5 years. I've got more questions about that than I have the new hospital. So very excited about the plans for the current facility. You know, it's in the heart of the community, and so to have that be dark or vacant, or just have the buildings reduced, to nothing, that would have been a challenge for the community. So I'm really excited that we were able to partner with Veridia and their leadership. I was so impressed with their plan for the community. It would have been much easier for us to go with someone that didn't have that kind of vision. And so while grateful for everyone's desire to want to take on this project, Veridia just did a great job really supporting a vision that the community leaders were supportive of, and that I'm excited to see happen. It's a longer term plan, it's really over 10 to 12 years, but I feel that their plans for this space now that we're going to be vacating are very exciting for the community.
We have only a few seconds left, but I assume that it's going to take you some time to move out of there too, besides the day of the big move.
Yes.
There must be a lot of stuff left over.
There's a lot of stuff in a lot of different places, and so there is. So we do have that transition worked out with Veridia, and we'll be safely transporting all our patients on the move day. But then there are going to be some logistical things we'll take care of afterwards.
Well, that sounds really exciting, and we'll have to have you back so you can tell us more about it as we get right down to that day.
I'd be happy to come back anytime.
Thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
I'll be back with some other thoughts for you in just a couple of minutes. You know, it's a pretty well accepted fact that as we get older, our bodies start to go through some physical changes, and our minds also can begin to change. And even if our mental capabilities remain strong, the world around us is changing so fast, it can be hard to keep pace. For today, let's stick with the physical side, and I realize we all experience these changes a little differently. Many of us expect that as we get older, our eyesight will change, maybe our hearing won't be what it used to be, and our reaction time may get a little slower. But there are other changes as well. For example, have you sat on the floor lately and then tried getting up? Young people bounce up and down like a yo-yo, but that's not the way it works for me. To start with, I pretty much avoid sitting on the floor. But if I'm forced into it, returning to a standing position can be a real effort. It often requires a kind of rolling action to gather momentum to get you back on your feet. You know what I mean? It's that or going to your hands and knees as an interim step in the process. I'm afraid one day I'll get down there and never get back up again. Then there's the issue of putting on my socks every morning. I don't know if my arms have gotten shorter or my legs have gotten longer, but I do know it's a lot harder to get my socks on than it used to be. When I was younger, it was one of those things you didn't give a second thought. Now it's become kind of a daily struggle. The hardest part is reaching out to get them started. It gets a little easier from there. You know, there's the current idea that 70 is the new 50, or whatever that comparison is that they make. And there is some truth to that. People are living longer and doing a lot more at an older age. All I know is that doesn't help me get my socks on in the morning. I'll be back in a minute. Before we go, let me remind you that if you want to watch the show again or recommend it to someone else, it will be available at uppermichigansource.com starting tomorrow afternoon. Thanks to Brian Sinott for joining us this morning. It's an interesting time in the healthcare industry. I appreciate his insights. And thank you for joining us. Let's get together again next Sunday morning.